And we have 3 ASAP group members to help us answer a few questions. First up, we have Dora Pignitsky, who is the sport associate for the Hungarian Olympic Committee. Dora, if you'd like to join me on stage, please. Representing the Slovak Olympic Committee is project manager Igor Kovac. And Bianca Kwadorkus is the officer for sports facilities, environment and sustainability at the German Olympic Committee. Please take a seat, please. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll try to dig into some more details following Jana's great presentation. I suppose that the key topic of this panel is around making sustainability a strategic priority within your organization and not doing ad hoc projects, but making it part of the organization. So I suppose the first question is, why is being strategic about sustainability important to your organizations? Igor, maybe we can start with you.
Is it on?
Yeah, just talk.
I think it is important for us to have this strategic approach because it was simply not existent before, and I think for us it was mostly about to have a plan. This was completely new for us, to have some defined goals and that we want to achieve in a certain time frame in the long term, and also to regularly report about the progress, about the achievements. And I think in terms of having this strategy approach is also to have the dedicated personnel that can focus 100% on the sustainability, and potentially to have let's say sustainability department with its own budget.
How did you find things changed during the course of the ASAP project? How did you become being not very strategic to being strategic? What changed as an organization?
I think just from the very beginning of the process, when we started with the screening of the organization, and after the screening process, we had the first meeting with our top management, President GS and Executive Director, where we also presented the first initial draft of how our strategy could look like. It was quite a surprise how positive it was perceived by the top management, and it kind of helped us also further in the process of creating the strategy, because we have established a sort of, let's say, working group where we regularly kind of check the progress in creating the strategy. So this was completely new as well.
Dora, how about you? Why is, for the Hungarian Olympic Committee, why is sustainability an important strategic topic now?
Well, it was a completely new process for us also. When we started this project, our colleague look at us as we are aliens, what we're talking about. And it was an excellent journey. So we started from a very, very low point. We had no knowledge about it, and we had no information what to do. And at the end, we came up with a very professional sources. So I think it was just a very, very, very interesting journey.
What has happened now that is different in the organization? Do your colleagues still look at you like aliens, or has that changed now?
I think everybody understands it in the first year that it has to be a daily routine. We have to think and we have to act in this like this with sustainability, and it's a attitude and it's a mindset what the whole organization has to live with. That's the main outcome.
Bianca, obviously the German Olympic Committee was a mentor organization, so you were slightly further ahead in your sustainability journey. Can you tell us a little bit about why sustainability is a key topic for your NOC and how it's become so important?
Yes, it developed, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. So we also developed our own strategy, and it took us also around 3 years. And it was really important to change the mind in the organization. And this is really a process which took some time, but it's really important to take some time for these issues, because then you have also the support of the the staff and of the leadership. And nowadays we adapted our strategy in 2019, and it's increasing more and more important because also our member organizations are asking about the topic of sustainability. Our sponsors are still asking how we are dealing with sustainability. Also our partners in politics or from other NGOs. And so we are thinking we are on the right way to discuss this topic. And of course we are also learning at the moment, and we learned really a lot in this project, even if we were a mentor. But we learned a lot from our mentee, the Czech NOC and all the other NOCs, because they did it in a very strategic way. And this was also helpful for us to get new ideas and new inspirations and new topics also for our strategy in Germany. So it was really a pleasure to be part of this project.
Can you give us an idea of some of the inspiration you got from the project? Did you change some of the things you were doing as a result of this project?
One point, for example, I was very impressed of the Olympic Festival, for example. I had the chance to visit it in Prague 1 year ago. And yes, how to implement sustainability aspects in sport events, for example. We also are talking about that in Germany, of course, but this was a very practical example how you can implement such aspects. And also the topic of communication, for example. Jana presented it, we developed a paper about how to communicate about sustainability. And yes, this is a topic in Germany we have to work on, how to communicate sustainability to different target groups. And so I learned a lot about communication, for example.
So we heard a little bit from Jana's presentation about the mentee-mentor relationship. Maybe for the people in the room who don't know too much about the project, maybe we can unpack that relationship and explain how that worked. Maybe Igor, can you talk a little bit about what it meant to be a mentee and what your experience was like working with a mentor organization?
Our mentor was Danish Olympic Committee, Dorte Andersen. She's not here, but she's following us online, so greetings to Dorte. And for us, for the Slovak NOC, we were kind of lucky that we had Denmark as a mentor, because both countries, Denmark and Slovakia, they have similar geographies in terms of area and population and so on. And we've been following their work in different areas related to sport for a certain time. And a lot of things are still very inspiring for us. And to have them as a mentor and the opportunity to cooperate with them within this ESA project was just another opportunity to learn from them, not only when it comes to creation of the strategy. So when we did the bilateral visit in Copenhagen, so we managed to gather also our president and our executive director, so they can see right there what they do. And we had very interesting, presentations from Sport Event Denmark about how they attract international sport events to the country and how they approach sustainability in organizing the events, and also from the Danish Foundation for Culture and Sport Facilities. So this was also very interesting how they approach the construction of sports facilities in the country. We learned a lot about the important role of municipalities they play in supporting the sport and also in constructing and operating sports infrastructure. So this was also very, very important for us, because sport events and sport infrastructure are very hot topics also for Slovak sport.
Dora, can you describe your experience as a mentee?
Well, it was quite interesting because Finland and Hungary is completely different in society, in sport life, in structure, even the NOC working on a different way. But a mentor can help in the whole process, even with minor steps or with smaller steps, how you can build up the whole process and how you can work on your sustainability strategy. So I have to say she pushed us, and this was a good thing, because sometimes we had to get a huge encouragement, because we were like, how can we do this? Like, we were saying that we can't do that. Yes, you can do that. And the end, when we had the draft of the strategy, the reviewing process was so useful and was so So good from our mentor. And this year we visited Helsinki, and the bilateral visit was really, really fantastic. And we learned, I think, the most of this, most of it.
We'll talk about the strategies very shortly, but on that point, Dora, you talked about being pushed. Can you give us how were you pushed? And because it's interesting to find out, because there are challenges with implementing sustainability, but it'd be interesting to find out how you address that as an organization.
As I said at the beginning, we didn't know how to start this whole process. We were like sitting in our office and we were reading so many papers, publications, and so many sources from the IOC, from other sport organizations. And it was like, Julie put this figure on this in her presentation, that your brain is like, it's chaotic, and a mentor can clear this process and can highlight what you have to focus on and highlight what the next step should be, and then you can do it, because you have to focus on your own organization. And if you understand your own organization and you know what the focus of your organization, then you can do your strategy. So it's really useful to read papers and publications and read all the other strategies and what other countries do, but you have to focus on yourself. And if you know what is your organization and what you want to do, then you can do your sustainability strategy too.
Bianca, can you talk about your perspective as a mentor? Were you a pusher as well, or how did you approach it from your position?
I don't had to push that much, because they were very engaged in this topic. We had really good spirit in this project, and so. But yes, it's nice to be part of this process, because every organization has to find its own way. There's no way for everyone, and not the same way for every organization. So you have to find your topics and your focus in the context of sustainability. Of course, we have all the topic of climate change and things like this, but you have to have a deep look into your organization. And yes, I think what Dorka said, it's to be there and to report about the own experiences we made the years before. And also to talk trustfully about problems we also had, because it's not that easy to find your way. And so I think perhaps it's helpful to hear that also in other organizations there are a lot of problems sometimes, and it's not easy all the time, but you can make it, and at the end it will help you and your organization to make you on this way. And so. Yes, it was a great experience, the bilateral meetings we had where we exchanged different topics, and it was also helpful for me. Like I said before, I got new ideas also for our organization, and yes, we have reviewed different documents which were developed during the process, and yes, we really had a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. Yeah.
Obviously, this mentor-mentee relationship was part of a wider project, but can this model be replicated throughout sport for organizations who are at quite a low level, finding an organization who is slightly more mature? Do you think that's a feasible way of doing things?
Yes, I would recommend this approach. I think it works really, really well to learn from each other, and yes, I would recommend to every organization to have a look for a mentor or a mentee combination. Yeah.
Igor, Dora, do you feel that you could now shift from mentee to mentor now you've been through this process? Igor, maybe we can start with you.
Maybe when it comes to creation of the strategy, but when it comes to implementation, it's completely different story. So we're not there yet, I would say so.
Dora?
Well, I'm not as good as Carolina from Finland, but of course we have experience. Like if in 3 years you can you can get that much experience that you can help other organizations for sure.
So maybe we can stay with you, Dora, because we'll talk about both the Hungarian NOC and the Slovak NOC produced a sustainability strategy in this process. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the detail of how the strategy came together. You were supported by your mentor, but how did you do it as an organization? What process did you go through?
First of all, that we are a small NOC, 25, 26 people, and we were before the Olympics, Tokyo Olympics, and as the sport department, we were working on the high performance strategy too. So we were very, very packed with many, many duties. And after half a year, we decided to make a contract with an external expert group, help us in the process. And we found 4 people, young people with very good education from Hungarian and foreign universities. And they had really good background, and they helped to make the process. But the Erasmus funding was not enough for that. And that time we turned to the Olympic Solidarity, and we made an application for more funds. And that's how we could fund the whole process with Erasmus and Olympic Solidarity funding. So in 6 months, we could do the strategy with this external group. This external group led a lot of workshop, a lot of conversation in our office, in our staff, a lot of focus group and workshops, many interviews with stakeholders. I think 30 interviews with stakeholders, from president to board members to sponsors to federations and stuff like that. And we also made questionnaires with the General Assembly and with the board. So at the end, I would say involvement and inclusion of your staff and of your board is very crucial in this process. And at the very end, when we had when we were making the final version of the strategy, this external group had 10 hours discussion with our general secretary. 10 hours discussion in 3 days to finalizing the final setup of the sustainability strategy, the final text. So that was in nutshell our process.
So there'll be people who are in the room watching, maybe online, who will be looking to go through a similar process. How did you find the external working group that helped you, and what kind of qualities and experience did you look for to help you?
We looked for external experts who can. We didn't have time to write. That was the main. We had ideas. We had set up the main process, but some external people had to lead these workshops. Some externals had to lead these interviews. It's a lot of time. And the other side, during the Olympics, in that 2 months when we were in the before Tokyo and during Tokyo, they put up the text. They wrote the text. So that's why we did external efforts, because we didn't have time to make the whole process. So the other thing that, of course, what experience they had, and Christoph, my colleague, and me, we met a professor. And he was the Hungarian member in the UN in New York for 2 years in the climate working group. And this professor suggested to work with these young people who has really good experience in sustainability strategy, and they work with the whole and holistic approach with sustainability. That's another key point, that you have to see it very holistic.
Igor, did you go through a similar process to Dora?
Actually, I mean, the whole process, I mean, it's quite similar. I mean, we had to do the screening, we had to do some consultation process with stakeholders and so on. Maybe comparing to Dorte, I had more time to work on it because didn't need to go to any Olympics and so on. But maybe I would also add on what Dorka said regarding the documents and materials that we had. I mean, I still remember Dorte saying that we had the advantage of having all the materials and documents from the IOC that were non-existent when Denmark started with to approach the sustainability. And particularly for me personally, particularly very useful was the sustainability management manual of the International Olympic Committee. It's very useful reading to understand the process. And yes, when we were creating the strategy, I mean, I was asking not only Dorte but also Bianca and Carolina from Finland for some help, especially, for example, when we were creating the surveys for the stakeholders, just to formulate the questions and what we should ask them about it, and so on. And they learned the hard way how annoying and demanding I can be sometimes. But yes, I think it went surprisingly, I would say, smoothly, because, I mean, we started in January 2020. At the beginning, it was quite difficult. We felt also confused and lost and everything. But somehow we managed that, and we had it approved in September 21. So it was I would say, not so complicated, difficult experience as Dorka had. But yeah, we are satisfied with that.
But Bianca, how involved did you get in your mentees' sustainability strategy when they were putting it together?
Yes, of course, we've discussed a lot, and we got the documents, we read them, we made comments on the different documents. As a mentor, we were there for questions, concrete questions, and yes, it took month, and sometimes it was calmer, and sometimes things had to be finished. And yes, it was a process, and it was intensive. But yes, the NOC was so motivated and on fire for this topic. So there was a lot of engagement, and so yes. It was nice to be a mentor, because of course it's work, but it's also nice to be part of such a process where you have colleagues who are so motivated in this topic. Yeah.
Bianca, you obviously made a number of tools that other organizations can use, like the roadmap that Jana mentioned during her presentation. What do you feel are the most useful tools that you produced as a group, and how would you like other organizations to use those tools?
Yes, of course, they are all useful, that's clear. Yes, but of course, the roadmap is the main result of our work. And I think it's really helpful if you would like to start the process of a sustainability process. It's really a step-by-step introduction, and I would recommend it to everyone who would like to start with that. But also the other tools Jana mentioned before, I think every tool helps you for one step in the process. So, for example, the making the case document will help you at the beginning when you have to convince your colleagues or your leadership why sustainability is important for your organization. Or the organizational screening document will give you a baseline, what's your starting point in your organization when you are starting with the process of the sustainability strategy. But also the communication sheet if you're beginning to communicate. So I think the core result is the roadmap, and I think it's really good to follow and easy to read, and you can deepen it with the different tools from the toolbox. Yes, so where you need some help, you can use the other tools.
Dora, during the process, what would you say is the most important or interesting thing that you learned? And what advice would you give to NOCs or similar organizations at the start of their journey?
Yeah, be patient. It takes some time. Dedicated leadership is really needed, and the trust between the strategy makers and the leadership. If you have a good leadership and you are able to talk to them and involve them in the process, you have a much easier way to do your strategy. and talk to your colleagues. Many workshops and many hours talking to your colleagues bring you many solutions, because every person who works even in the finance or marketing or the international or in the communication side, everybody can add something to the whole process and get some good ideas. So I would say the involvement, inclusion, and of your colleagues and leadership is very important.
Igor, most interesting thing, most important thing you learned, and any pieces of advice you can give to another organization?
I remember Dorte saying, Igor, no matter how skilled you are, you cannot do it alone. She was repeating over and over again. So I would just reiterate what Dorka said, that very important is to have the top management on board. And we were lucky enough to have them on board. So this was kind of very crucial for us. And yeah.
Maybe we can focus very quickly on that point in terms of getting management on board. How easy a process was that, and how did you manage that?
I mean, it was a very big surprise for me, because I had like half an hour presentation after the screening process, the outcome of the screening process, and the first kind of proposal, the draft of our strategy, and it went like this. I mean, they were immediately, I mean, yes, let's do it.
Wow.
I mean, it was a shock. I mean, yeah. When I was listening to the experiences of the others, it was a shock. So
You were expecting to answer difficult questions, but it was nice and easy.
yeah, it went really that way. I mean, really. I mean, I had an experience a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned that yesterday when we had the ASAP team meeting. And I had a meeting with our executive director, and he told me that, Igor, I read a book about climate change, and it's really serious. We need to really take it seriously, and we need to approach the strategy really seriously, and its implementation. So let's do it. Let's work on it. So it was very positive experience.
Which book was it? Maybe we can share it with everyone.
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Bianca, any major lessons learned from the project, and any advice you could give to other organizations?
Yes, perhaps don't be afraid to start, because I think at the beginning it's really a big mountain and you think, okay, it's so complicated and such a long process. And I think, yes, not to be shocked and to start, and not to be afraid also to make mistakes or things like this. But I think at the moment it's a good point, because people are more and more aware of this topic and open-minded for this. And yes, more and more persons are discussing about the different stakeholders, the other NGOs, the sponsors, the political actors. So I think at the moment it's a good starting point to start, and don't be afraid, and ask for help, like Jana also said. And I think it's a really important topic, and it's important for all of us. Yeah.
The last question I have for you before we go for our coffee break is, Igor, you mentioned at the very beginning, now is the time for implementation. You've done the strategy. So what's next for all of your organizations? Dora, maybe we can start with you.
Well, in this year, the beginning of this year, we had a change in the leadership. So the whole situation is very different in our organization. So the implementation will be even harder. So the whole process slowed down because of this change. We hardly finished the strategy graphical design in these days. So I guess we have to be more patient, and we have to find new ways with the new leadership what we can do, because the new leadership not as dedicated to this topic as the previous one, but we have some minor or smaller step what we're going to do in the next years, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit faster than but that's the situation in our organization right now. So it's going to be way smaller than we planned it.
Well, that's a shame. Hopefully, Igor, you don't have a similar situation. How do things look for you going forward?
I think the biggest challenge for us right now is to do the carbon footprint calculation. We are going to be part of this new project from the beginning of the next year called Ocean, where we are supposed to be trained, and we should learn about how to do that. So a big challenge for us is going to be the data collection and finding a reliable source of emission factors.
And Bianca, what's next for the German Olympic Committee in sustainability?
Climate footprint is also a big topic for us. We have a first climate balance, and now we have to make a plan how to reduce our emissions the next years, and what about compensation and things like that. So we will discuss that in our headquarters a lot. And on the other hand, we will thinking about, in the context of sustainability and sport events, to develop criteria for sustainable sports events in Germany. And we are thinking about a project in this context. So these are two big topics for us, events and climate balance.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of our panel. If you'd like to discuss any more topics with our speakers, they'll be around during the next coffee break. But for now, please join me in thanking all of our great panelists for a wonderful session. Thank you very much.